bringing our kids specifically on the journey. Like, we think and talk about that. We want to be able to give them, by no means like force them to, be a part of the company and take over the company. But that's something that we really look forward to, is facilitating an inroad and something that we can bring them along on the journey.
My first question, to prove whether there's painful honesty here or not, is for Derrick. When did you decide to start balding?
That's a great question. So I'm glad that you as well are a fellow bald person.
Creative,
yes,
more powerful,
exactly.
more beautiful.
Yeah. So
you just decided, you went for it. You're like, what?
Yeah.
I need to.
Well, the myth that I've heard, I don't know if it was on a Joe Rogan podcast or something else, or maybe it's just something I invented in my head, but it's just because you're bleeding with testosterone
right.
that the hair starts to fall out. So he's got plenty of hair on his head.
It's the alpha male over here.
Yeah, no, but at early 20s for me, man. And what's so funny is hair was such a part of my identity early on. And yeah, so the Lord the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh. And
we're gonna have to show the dreadlock photo.
I had dreadlocks at one time. I had a thick head of hair, curly hair. I'll have to shoot that your way, but
that's wild.
Yeah, man. But it's been good. It's less distracting. You know how it is. It's just so much easier to maintain. It's one less thing you're thinking about. So,
you shave in the shower?
Yeah. Well, so I do two different things. Sometimes it depends on how busy I am, but sometimes I just have a no guard, razor that I just knock out, clean up. I have like one of those. It's a knockoff skull shaver, but I don't know if you've seen those ads for those. Do that, and then I got a head blade as well. That I just
let that be encouraging for all the bald filmmakers out there. Like, you have a place.
You have a place. Just embrace it. You're bleeding with testosterone. Let that So describe for me what you guys do and what you do well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we kind of our startup was run and gun. I would say storytelling, filmmaking. We really started in the skate video kind of world. So stealing our friends' parents' camcorders, and making skate videos, but what we do now, that's kind of a brief history of our start. But I think now we're kind of more on the commercial filmmaking side of things. And I think that authentic filmmaking that doesn't feel forced, that feels natural, is probably where we come from. We kind of dig the commercial side of stuff quite a bit. We still do plenty of run and gun, content grab, micro content. We certainly have our run of that stuff. We had a project here that we would probably. It was over the summer, out of country shoot, and ended up being like a 7-minute piece, 8-minute piece, something like that. So we still have that type of stuff from time to time, but I would say commercial is probably where we kind of live these days.
Yeah, and in the short of it, we're just consider ourselves a turnkey, one-stop shop production company, an extension for agencies when they need us to come in and, put together a commercial campaign. Sometimes that is turnkey, all the way from helping the concepts all the way through post. Sometimes it's just, hey, we just need you to facilitate the production. And then they have other partners or in-house teams that handle that, and then direct with brands as well. So turnkey from concept to completion.
So commercials, the commercial side is kind of where you want to stay, or what do you like doing the most?
Yeah, so I think for me, primarily how it's set up now is I primarily direct everything. Matt primarily DPs everything. We do have other partners and vendor relationships and people that we lean on, either when, we get really busy or we just feel like a project's a little bit out of our depth, which has happened, and we've leaned on people who are better than us, and have incorporated them. But we feel like at the end of the day, no matter what, we'll always be great tastemakers, And there will always be that flagship thumbprint on anything that we do, whether we are literally involved, camera in hand, monitor in hand, calling the shots, or not, just managing and guiding the client. But I really lean in as a director to commercial filmmaking because typically you rally around a central idea, a campaign, a concept. I really work well with and alongside creative directors that oftentimes are either much more familiar with the brand than I am able to be for that particular project, or just know some of the nuances. And so it sort of gives me the freedom and flexibility to lean on them for those nuances, but help guide them. And I always use the word translate. Like, I always like to translate their ideas into film and what will work. A lot of times, you're working with creative directors or people on, the marketing side that are familiar with digital and print and, different other, marketing verticals. And you know how it is. Video is just a very complex beast. And it's a lot like Black Beauty. It doesn't like to be tamed. So if, you can have someone who has done it over and over again, can kind of see around the corner. That's where we sort of try to help people understand, like, when they're bringing a concept to us, we really like to run it through and know what's going to work, what isn't, some recommendations and so forth. But on the commercial side, I just really enjoy the sprint of it, like versus long form, or, a lot of our friends in the industry around here who are on episodic or are on films or are on documentaries. You're just in it so much longer. With commercial, it's like a really fun sprint, and the payoff is just a lot quicker and a lot more rewarding. I feel like a lot of times you're dealing with larger budgets too, and that just gives you the ability to do more fun things, get more creative. So yeah, that's what I like. And I like melding, we've been storytellers from day one, from when we started our company. And so I really like that approach. We sort of use, the approach of what we tell our clients is we always try to make sure that their customer is the hero, not their product, not their company, and we try to position them as the guide. And so the brand is the trusted guide that is guiding the hero, which is your customer, alongside their journey for the payoff, that they're after. So that's how we try to sort of approach things from a rough framework. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're going to have clients that are like, yeah, that all sounds great, but we want to do this. So, that's what draws me, I think, to commercial filmmaking. And it's just different every time. So,
yeah.
Talk to me about your early stages. How painful has it been to grow a business? I mean, I think this is kind of where, I'm being serious when I'm saying the vulnerability is key, because like we talk to a lot of small businesses, and of course we've been one for 15 years, and it's just been really difficult for us, and we love to share those stories, or kind of swap those battle stories. What's it been like for you guys?
I would be shocked if anyone would have a different answer than that. than it's really difficult to grow a small business, especially like in the creative sphere. I think for us, like one of our key pieces of our DNA is like we always want to make sure that we put people first, and that's both our people that work with us, vendors, to people that, work on our team, to our clients, to actors on set, to whatever. Like, we always want to put people first. And so we found that in order to put people first and to make sure we're holding to our core values, like it definitely means, to some extent, there's going to be some things that you probably could have done that you would have been able to grow a lot faster. Not caring so much about people, you probably could have grown a lot faster. You probably could have worked people harder. You probably could have fired people quicker. And not saying that any of that stuff is wrong, but we certainly are very, very hyper aware of making sure that we take care of people, and making sure that we don't ever just take on a job just to take on a job. And from the smallest job to the largest job, I mean, kind of hence the name Flagship, is like we always want to put like our biggest and our best foot forward on stuff. So a lot of companies will have their flagship camera. It's the one with all the bells and whistles they put everything into, or their flagship retail store. And so that's kind of who we are. Like any project we take on, we're going to put our thumbprint, as Derrick said, of a flagship on there and put our best foot forward on it. And so what that means is that I think for us, we've moved a bit slower on purpose because we want to make sure we took care of people. And so, but yeah, man, it's definitely not an easy road to go down. It's definitely not an easy thing to do. And, we just always want to make sure, we treat people right and we don't just take on a job and then, grab the money and kind of do an okay, product out the door, which I think you probably could grow pretty fast doing that, just caring a lot less about stuff. And so I would say that's probably one of the many aspects of growing a small business that's been a little tricky for us. So
yeah, and I would say, on like the specifics, growing a team, like as for us, you sort of start with your passion, right? Which for us, it was filmmaking. It's like something that we desired to do. We really, got a lot of enjoyment. And then somewhere along the way, you're like, okay, I got to wear all these other hats and figure all this other stuff out too. And then, as you grow, as you mature, at least, our journey has been, it's very rewarding on the, entrepreneurial side of it. As equally as it is, the product that we offer and so forth. But I think that that's probably been the most difficult thing, being in the type of industry that we've been in, that we don't have, like, we're not selling shirts. We're not selling products. We're selling a very custom service, and the barrier of communication and understanding from a client side of things to keep that funnel full, it's definitely like you're going out and fishing every single day, going out and, sometimes it feels like, oh, we brought home, a lot of fish. We're going to be eating for a while. But you sort of know in the back of your mind, like, we're going to go out and fish again. And there's certainly times of plenty and there's certainly times of lack. And I think at least what we've learned along the way is, we've certainly made mistakes. We have not done it perfectly at all. But one of the best decisions I feel like Matt made, just a decision from when he started the company, was that he wasn't going to get into debt. And so everything that we did, everything that we purchased, was all cash. And so that just keeps things, keeps one less thing that you have to worry about from that standpoint to keep things moving. And then, on the employee side, at our largest, we grew to about 8 people. Right now, we're at about 3 full-time people, and we've sort of just altered our model a little bit and just leverage vendor relationships and scale up on projects that need to be scaled up. But happy to answer any specifics too, if that's too generic.
Yeah, I really relate to the fact that you guys didn't go into debt. That's the exact same thing for us, and we would have died 50 times had we had any debt.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I like all these videos and courses and things that I follow, where people are like, how to get more credit cards and open more, accounts, and so that you can fund your startup. And they're like, there's good debt and there's bad debt. And I actually believe that and agree that there is good debt and bad debt. But I'm like, you got to remember that any debt could just kill you if in a market downturn or if you make a mistake. So that's what our history has shown too. It's cool to hear that for you guys as well.
I also feel like debt can artificially inflate things and make you feel like you're doing a lot better than you are.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of startup companies that get a lot of venture capital and they have a ton of money to spend, but they're kind of like shell companies. Like they're not actually making any money out there. Now I'm talking outside of our industry, more Silicon Valley type stuff, but they're actually not making any money, but they have the nicest office. They have the best website. Like, they got, marketing budgets for days, but it's only a matter of time before that money runs out. And so I think debt can give you a false sense of security, and especially when you get used to it, you can just go deeper and deeper. And before you know it, it's like, my goodness, like, I will never get out of this debt by the end of my lifetime,
and you make decisions too differently when you have debt versus when you don't have debt. And I think that's the biggest thing. Even when we had larger overhead of people, a lot of it was very like very noble, like, hey, we're going to grow, we have targets, we have goals, let's fill this in so we can grow to that capacity, rather than our gut instinct was and now has returned to, hey, when we're bursting at the seams, that's when we're going to hire another person. When this is something where we know we can't get by without, that's when we're going to hire another person.
Right.
Versus a little bit more of not wishful thinking, goal-oriented thinking, but then who could have predicted COVID, obviously, and some of those things, like you said, like a market downturn, or, our industry changes, evolves, people look at things differently. I'm sure you get this all the time, when it's for budgets and stuff. A lot of the stuff we do is products, but like, they'll want a commercial campaign type idea, but then they'll say, oh, it's just for social though. So it's like, I don't know where that came from, that means that it costs less, but it's like, we're still doing the same equipment. We're still doing the same, everything that we're doing. Just because it's for social doesn't mean that it all of a sudden magically costs less. So,
and truthfully, you're going to be disappointed, the client, if we don't deliver something that is what you've already come to us and come to expect from us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's good. I feel like for us, 2021 was that way. I was looking at people with loose, free, easy money, and I saw businesses growing all over the place, and we were too. And then 2022 is like, oh, it dried up a little bit. It's like, but so sales and marketing is really hard. Let's stay on the business side of things for a bit. I want to talk about philosophy and stuff later, but what do you guys do? Is it mostly just word of mouth? Talk to me about your lead flow. Do you want more? Are you fine? Are you comfortable? Do you spend time on your own marketing like we don't? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I would say historically, from day one, it was Flagship jumped off by having like a client that was willing to trust us, and that just kind of continued to spurn into one thing after the next. So right out the gate, it was word of mouth. Hey, we have a project. Would you be willing to freelance? And so I was working a full-time job at a nonprofit, and then was doing some freelance stuff on the side, hence was able to kind of make freelance money on the side to buy a camera cash to stay debt free right out the gate from the jump, right? And so word of mouth from the start, then word of mouth led to another one, so on and so forth. And it stayed word of mouth, I would say, for quite some time.
Word of mouth is still the largest capacity. And same thing that you mentioned, I think marketing oftentimes for smaller companies like ours, especially when like it's owner operator, like you're in the business as well as working on the business, has always sort of taken a back seat. Similar to what you just said about 2021. 2021 was our largest year fiscally. 2022 was slightly less, but still a really profitable year. Q1 for us is typically and historically slower. And Q2 is where things start ramping up. So we've had the opportunity this year and sort of put our focus right now is to elevate marketing, is to have a real focus on sales. Because at the end of the day, if we can create that predictable top funnel as best as possible, that just makes make sure that we're constantly sharp, because we're constantly in a flow of work and we're not switching gears from like, I got to go find the work. Now I got to go do the work. Now I got to go find the work. Now I got to go do the work. And, some years it has been like 2021 was, we didn't have to find a single thing. We were saying no to things and trying to figure out how we could facilitate all of the work, but that was by nothing of our own. Something I read recently, and it's just been sticking with me, is, good work is the price of admission. And that's sort of how we approach things. Like, good work doesn't guarantee that you're going to get work. That's just sort of the price to play in our type of industry. So it should go without saying that we should be doing great work, that we should be, excelling and improving and so forth. But where the effort, at least for us, is right now is definitely on the marketing side and the sales side, and figuring that both on the outbound, both on the inbound. We can talk about the strategies that we're approaching if you want to get specific about that. But full disclosure, we're figuring all that out right now. And I think we have some good instincts. We have some good gut feelings that have sort of helped us navigate the waters for the last 8 years from a business mindset. But we also have realized that, like, at the end of the day, we're storytellers, but we're not, marketers who understand the ins and outs of, all of that, or salespeople at the end of the day. So that's definitely something that we're growing into beyond our just natural intuition and our natural gut feelings, gut instincts that have brought us to this point. We want it to be a little bit more laser focused.
It really is about who you know. It's about people work with people they enjoy working with and that they like. And so, man, it's just like our reputation and our client experience is like so top notch for us. Like it is like one of the top things that we are always most concerned about, most aware of, is just making sure, like, are we cool to work with on set? Are we having a good time? Like it is a massive deal to us. And so sure, like we know we can do, pretty good work. But the experience side of it, like how fun or how enjoyable was it for everyone involved, not just the client, but your client's client, like the crafty person, the PA, like anybody involved in it. Like how enjoyable was that process? Was it fun? Because that's our goal. We don't really see a point in being in business if you're not having a good time and enjoying the adventure, is basically our motto. And so, yeah, it's about who you know. It's about those relationships, and people work with people that they, really enjoy working with. So,
yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble with my people. So, of course, yeah, we are putting some time into marketing. But for years, so similar to you guys, for years we didn't, right? You're just constantly doing client work and watching all of this storytelling opportunity just drift right by. I'm like, okay, do we even have one case study? Have we gathered one testimonial from any client? Like none of that. Just we're all about just serving the client all the time. And eventually we're looking around just saying, we have all that, and it's, shame on us for letting that just kind of flow right by us. And, we're seeing a little bit of fruit. So keep at it. Keep at it. Yeah. A little bit of fruit will come from putting out there, and people get to know you through, especially long form like this. Like I really like the podcast thing because they get to know you. They start to understand your values, and they're saying, okay, yeah, this is, I've already seen their portfolio. So to your point earlier, so I've heard it said a little differently, like the beauty, the quality of what you're putting out there. That's kind of like hygiene, like it's hygiene level. Like you're not going to date a girl just because she has good hygiene, right? It's her personality. It's like, do you connect? And like, you guys dial in on what your niche and what you're really good at, and we're doing the same thing. Documentaries are a little bit more on our side. We do commercials too, but mostly documentaries and docuseries is the way we're going. But it's like that's the thing that really sets you apart. It's like the quality. And I'm sure you guys, we all had the same front row seat of watching the early 2000s all the way through till now just get better and better quality for everybody. And back then it was a total differentiator. It was like you either had that crappy corporate video that looked like a soap opera, or you had cinematic stuff. That's where the meme of cinematic word came from, because it was real, right? So it's totally different than that now. But you guys, I look at your reel and I'm like, it's top notch. You guys do beautiful work. So that's really great.
That.
Thanks.
Yeah,
how'd you guys fall into your roles over time? Have you wrestled at all with like who does what, and how are we going to grow going forward? Talk to me about your roles.
Yeah, I would say for a while it was kind of like we were both DP directors. And then on one shoot in particular, it was like I don't know if we went into it or just on set, we're like, all right, from here on out, you're going to
It was
direct.
in the middle of the shoot. It was like, I think it was like a 4-day shoot. And like you were leaning more into the visual side of things, even though I had the camera in the hand. And then I was like, you were problem solving those things. And I was like, I don't need you to problem solve that. I need you to problem solve this. And then I was problem solving the story and the edit.
This doesn't make sense. We need to do this.
Yeah. So I think it was like either the end of that shoot. So this would have been about 2016, 2017. So we'd gone like a year of just every job was just figuring it out. Every job was just saying yes. And it's like, I'm sure you're similar in how you approach things at the beginning as well. Like we knew we could make something better than, that what they were bringing to us. So we had confidence in our capabilities, but the actual, like, we were still really green though on how to get there. Certainly not as efficient. Certainly, I had been on larger sets and so forth, but we were just green. So yeah, it was on that shoot 2016, 2017, where we're just like, all right, I'm going to direct, you're going to DP. And then that was like a 1.5 year journey of like, I just deep dive all things directing. He deep dived all things DPing. And then we actually became a decent director and a decent DP. And oddly enough, though, we're also the synergy that we have on set. Oftentimes Matt knows what I'm thinking, I know what Matt's thinking, we can communicate almost effortlessly. And that's another thing too that we often talk to with agencies as well, who often scale out or like, oh, we're gonna sort of outsource all these components and crew up that way, or just a producer is gonna crew up. We like to handle a lot of those roles because that cohesiveness matters on set. It matters for the end product. And so, yeah, I would say 2018 is really when we were like, okay, we know what we're doing now, and have just sort of improved from that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you guys dabbled at all in any kind of reoccurring revenue models?
We have. Again, case in point, when you were speaking of the marketing and sales side of things, right now that's what we're looking at is like we've sort of identified our model right now. We call it sort of our legacy product, which is just custom turnkey video. But it's a lot like we compare it to a custom home builder. So someone comes to us, they want a house, and they don't have a budget maybe, and they're looking for us, and we're like, well, you got to tell us how many rooms, what you want in it. Is this a waterfront property? Is this a studio? Is it a trailer park maybe? So that comes with so many different things where you're like, all right, I have to line item all this stuff. I have to make sure that we have all of our, I's dotted, T's crossed, things, variables. There's so many variables with that. So we sort of identify that as our legacy, and that's how we operate right now. We're looking into productizing things more. One of those would be more of a retainer, where it's like, how can we remove some of those variables, make those things predictable, and promise sort of content and what those deliverables would be. And we're just sort of identifying a lot of what those products could be, bits and pieces all together. So, but we haven't found success. We've done a couple trial runs of stuff, but we haven't found repeat success. And all of them have been more work on us because we don't want to fail to deliver, and that's one thing we never fail to deliver, even if we have to eat the cost, even if we have to eat the time, whatever it may be, we're going to make it right. But we haven't quite figured out or solved that, silver bullet, if it even exists.
Yeah. Well, it is difficult. I will say it's super difficult because you can have this push-pull where it's like, okay, how much money is coming in to how much value is going out all the time. It's like, how do you stay in sync with that?
Yeah.
There are ways of doing it. It's cleaner when you have very clear deliverables and that carrot is there, and you're just like, okay, yeah, we're gunning towards this, to your early point about, being project focused, and it's a sprint and it's not. But some of the longer form stuff, like for us, we'll have clients that there's a central theme, and it's like, okay, that's way bigger than one video. This could be series, right? This could be a series. And you have a dedicated producer, and the dedicated producer is just like sleeping, breathing that idea, and they can push it forward for however long that package is. And even when that package is done, you can say, okay, what's next? What was the case study? How did this grow from here? And I'll tell you what for us is what's been difficult is distribution. Like talking through, we work well with marketing departments, but there's often a disconnect where people will say, how much are you guys, you're going to make these videos and we can feel the value of them, but where do they go and how do you use them and what are you going to do with them, right?
100%.
I think everybody in the business has those same conversations, and I think if you can crack the code on that and like have a really good distribution arm or like department or something, or a partner, outside partner, I think that could be super valuable. And that's still something we're working on too.
Yeah. That's something that we kind of looked into. We actually did some courses on, how to distribute, how to, run paid ads for clients and stuff like that. We actually definitely deep dived into that. I would say probably 2019, 2018, somewhere in that time frame, and so Derrick always says, it kind of sucks when you give someone like a Ferrari engine, meaning like a really great video, but there's nothing else. It's just the engine, so they have it sitting on their website, like not really doing anything, not really driving anywhere or doing any like kind of, racing for them, if you will. And so, that's kind of the bummer.
And the dirty truth, and I hate even saying this, vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Is that an organization might get more out of just crappy user-generated content that is moving a certain message forward. I don't want to say TikTok, or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, because even though those do get great views quickly, it's like, what is the real influence over a certain amount of time? But it is pretty wild to see the success that many organizations have with low production quality. So it's like, for us, we believe that ultimately, if you have an incredible story to tell, no great story is going to be told super fast.
Right.
So again, we're like moving towards entertainment. Like, where is there brand entertainment or brand programming where the lines between, hearing from this company, this brand, and seeing what they believe, what are their core values, and what's the value that they bring to the world, and those lines blurring to, like, am I watching a Netflix show, or am I hearing about seeing what a company is doing? That's what we're trying to do on this end, is like really blur those lines and just say, people want amazing entertainment. I kind of shy away from the word content, because for me it feels a little bit cheap and a little bit webby. But really, it's like we all tune into Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, and we're watching something that's longer, and usually that is really super high production value. But there's ways to do it with organizations where it's not breaking the budget, but still something that people want to engage in on that level. So for me, that's just a little peek into kind of our side on this world. But yeah, it sometimes is a little bit like, wow, you guys, this company really moved the needle with content that was not, it's like, you could do it quickly. Whether you will or not is a different thing. But have you guys navigated some of those conversations?
Yeah. So, well, it's funny that you say we're actually filming some, like, incorporating some user generated content in a shoot that we have upcoming through an agency for an e-com brand. And so we've sort of placed, like, what we do, and it's funny that you say, a while back, like, you talked about cinematic and how that used to matter a lot more when there was like a much larger chasm, and now the chasm's a lot smaller, because everyone has just elevated their ability as filmmakers. But we sort of put those types of shoots in content grab, we would call them, where it's like, hey, you're gonna get cinematic quality, good looking lifestyle footage of whatever it is, and it still has to be, whether it's user generated, whether it's bad production quality or good production quality, like, at the end of the day, the idea, like, that's where the money or where the value is, I should say. And so it has to be anchored to an idea, it has to be anchored to a true north. And obviously we've got sort of thrust into this world of TikTok and short form content, and the algorithm and the scroll. But on my non-cynical days, on my more optimistic days, I like to think that in the end, authenticity is going to win out, and it's what we're seeing is, like, like a bag of Skittles, like which is TikTok. Like it's quick, you can open it, you can eat it, but if you eat too much of it, you're gonna get sick.
Right.
And that's what I feel like a lot of that low effort content, and it's gonna start competing so much. And at the end of the day, you know, the audience that you're reaching on those platforms is only gonna have but so much money to spend on your products and so much loyalty to all these brands that I do feel like it's a cheap trick that is not going to it's just going to be a part of the bag of tricks, and we're not trying to compete with Skittles. We're trying to compete with making a great steak, well-balanced meal, and that's sort of how I view it. And not that we can't offer that service, not that we can't step in and facilitate that from a partnership level, but I'd like to think that eventually people are going to get sick of that, and authenticity and story at the end of the day has been around. TikTok's been around, and short form content's been around for a couple years. Story's been around for 2,500 plus years. Everything operates through story. Our brains operate through story. We latch onto things better through story. So I'd like to think on my less cynical days that story is going to win out in the long run.
I kind of feel like everything kind of has its place. You know, I think there is a place for, you know, kind of what we do, the commercial side of stuff, or, you know, Jed, like kind of what you do, which is like more on the longer form doc side of stuff. I think there's a place for that. There's people that want that type of content as much as there's people that just want quick hits of TikTok or Reels or whatever. All of those things. And then, you know, you have brands that are like, yeah, we want to come out with high quality product videos, and we're going to carve out part of our budget for that. But we also know that there's brand ambassadors or influencers or whatever label you want to put on them that also generate a lot of product sales for us. And so there's a place and a reason for each different type, and it's kind of like diversifying your income. Like for us, you know, as creators, where it's like, yeah, you want to have different streams of income coming in. That's like the dream, is so that, you know, you're not just all eggs in one basket. I think it's the same way for brands, and the same way for when they're thinking about the entertainment or the content that they are going to produce or put money into. There's different avenues in which they're trying to have all that stuff feed, you know, the beast. And so, I think there's a good spot for all that stuff to live and thrive. We're just not in that world of being a brand ambassador or an influencer. You know, we're more on the, you know, storytelling, you know, commercial side of things. So.
Yeah. And you just said it, like packaging is key, right? Like even if you're, so for us, the deal didn't go through, but we had a pretty big deal recently where it was a long form series, but part of it was that there would be user generated content that was made with it, right? You know, like the behind the scenes and like the interviewing of different people and very intentionally using phones so that it is UGC and not like super high production value, because it's pretty wild. People just like scroll past some of that stuff. But yeah, authenticity, to Derrick, to your point, authenticity wins out. Like I love this. There's a podcast called My First Million. If you haven't checked it out, it's a great podcast. And one of the things one of those guys said, and I know that they're repeating someone else said, but it's like the goal with content, even like what we're doing here, especially this type, is not to become well known, but to become known well, right? It's like if you're being real and people are getting to know you over a certain amount of time, that's the know, like, and trust, and that's what brings influence. Ultimately, all of this storytelling, all of this online content, it's all to build influence. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
And you better be building it around things that you actually want to be known for. Otherwise, it's just a money grab, and that's not worth it. So yeah, that leads me into my next question. So, you know, as it relates to using story to help organizations grow, what are some of the results you guys have seen with clients, and how do you manage those expectations?
Good question. Any thoughts on your end?
I just want to make sure. So, can you repeat the question?
I mean, it's if you have any examples of results, because we have these conversations with clients. It's like, what's it going to be? And in the end of the day, for us, it's often been like, this is brand building. This is building know, like, and trust. This is, there's no easy way for us to quantify in sales or brand lift or whatever. But has it been that same way with you guys?
Yeah, on the agency side, there are definitely easier metrics to attach to, and our agency partners will sort of share that with us after the fact. And again, we always joke, I'm sure you followed the LinkedIn guy, Adweek, but it's like spelled like weak, like weakness. But it's basically,
I'll check it out.
It's hilarious. It just basically like all the nuance of the industry, it just sort of pokes fun at that. But one of the things it talks about is like, it always starts out with breaking. We just shared the metrics and impressions of whatever, but it's basically poking fun at like what are metrics, what are impressions, what are reach, and so forth. They're just inflated numbers, but I think we would lean more towards what you said, which is we have helped, I feel, and have gotten feedback, especially on the smaller brands that we've worked with, where they have a great product, they have a great team, but visually there's a huge disconnect, and it feels very cheap until we come in and we tell that story, capture their products, in the environment and the life that they live, and the personas that they sort of go after. And I mean, we were literally just looking at this a couple weeks ago. One of the websites that we did, where we call them like splash reels. I don't know if that's the right word, but like sort of just the content that sort of plays when you go on the website. And we're like, man, coming to this website feels like a totally different experience now. Like, this matches, the brand. And so that's what we sort of like to say and communicate to, especially on the smaller brands, is like, hey, we elevate where you're already at, but elevate you visually to match where the quality is and where the product already is. And that's where I think we've seen the largest ROI is on the optics side of things. We're just elevating that brand to create that immediate trust that when someone goes to your website, when, especially on the e-com side of things, like, it's just like, wow, this looks like an impressive brand. I can see myself using this product because, it's sort of mirroring me as the audience, and it just sort of matches our aesthetic, our taste, and so forth from that standpoint.
Yeah, there's also like the aspect of like, if the video quality elevates them and it makes that brand feel a lot more higher quality, well then guess what? Now they can actually charge maybe a little bit more to match, the quality of their product, where, before maybe they just didn't have that type of an outlook from their client base, And so, yeah, I mean, it's funny that the example was like the company that we actually did stuff for have two similar websites, but they're basically two different funnels. And so one doesn't have our content on it. We're like, okay, like looks fine. And then you go to the other one that does have our content on there that we created for them. And it was just such a night and day difference between the two websites. And so that's just where I think if I were to land on this particular website, see this quality content that feels natural, that has lifestyle to it, and again, kind of elevate it. In my opinion, it feels very elevated. I would be willing to pay more, and I would actually want to buy that product versus something that maybe isn't quite as alive. And so that's kind of, I think, getting back to the stats and impressions and stuff like that, because we're not handling that side of things, it's more the agency handling that, and that's their job to do that, or the brand. We're able to speak less to that and more to just the tangible
perceived
brand
value.
Building. Yeah, perceived.
That was the phrase I was about to use. Like, there's real value, and then there's perceived value, and it's like it's a really magical combo when the perceived value is right up there. Because a lot of times that real value, people that are doers, that are focused on providing that value, they're not always focused on upping the optics, like what's the perceived value, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you, and that goes beyond the visuals too. That goes into, again, like we said, authenticity, and what are people being vulnerable? Are they connecting in the stories? Like, there's no story without conflict, right? So if we say we're storytellers, we have to be willing to put that conflict, and that's another conversation we have often with our clients. We're like, you guys are used to 50 plus years, let's say it's a larger organization, of corporate BS nonsense where you're just like parroting we're good at this or we're at that, or we decided to take an approach that was like, it's like, okay, no one's talking like that, and no one's it's not real. Where did things fall apart? Where did things who came into your office and screamed at you, and then that really made the change that led to the, like, where's the conflict here? And can you be courageous to put that out there? We'll be careful in the way we put it out there, but that's where you're going to really connect to people, because they're going to be like, finally, this is real. Like the plastic turnoff of corporate nonsense is just it's done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some brands are extremely brave when it comes to that, and some it's tough for them to get out of their own way, or there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. There's just too much red tape to be able to take that big of a risk, And with risk comes great reward.
Right.
With risk comes great potentially. I think of some brands here as of late that have taken some big marketing risks and have paid the price for that. And so.
Looking at you, Bud Light. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It is true. It's like polarizing, right? You're gonna have, but that's why you gotta stand on what you believe and your convictions, because better to be polarizing and lose the clients that you don't want and gain the ones that you do, I think. But that actually leads me into my next question I have, which is, like, we're both in the business of using art for communication.
Yeah.
And as it relates to philosophy, values, beliefs, I think it's no secret that artists' beliefs have a huge impact on the art that they make. Although sometimes, the process of making the art can shape your beliefs too. So, talk to me about how this has been for Flagship. You guys in the commercial space, you probably haven't had to deal with too many situations where you're just saying, hey, that's not for us. But have there been any, and what's been the deal for you guys?
There's none that come to mind where, like, the content itself wasn't, though there would certainly be a line for us, but I can't think of anything that we've turned down from a content standpoint that's come our way where it's like, yeah, we just can't do that. I will say we definitely along the way have had experiences with clients or collaborators where we didn't know until we were in it, until we went through ourselves, where it's like, okay, now 8 years through, we have our core values. We have our core values written down. We know who we are, whether or not Flagship Visuals is the company or not. Like, this is who we are, our core values. But we've definitely had to agree to part ways, or like, hey, this isn't a right fit now moving forward. And again, it's always tricky and you got to be tactful, and at the end of the day, like, we truly, like, it's in our core values, people first. These aren't just brands or clients, these are people at the end of the day. And so we definitely try to walk that tightrope.
What he's trying to say is, in the 8+ years, is we've only had to fire 2 clients of ours.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, it hasn't been, we're not going to do this project because of the content. Although, like Derrick said, we certainly have a line for that for sure. But it was more, hey, we're not going to continue doing this because this relationship is counter what our DNA is. You're not taking care of people. We happen to be some of those people, but to be honest, there's a lot of other people that are not being taken care of in this process, and we no longer can be a part of this working relationship.
So 2 conversations have happened, but there have been more where we're like, we're no longer going to pursue work, or we won't accept work, and conversations haven't necessarily been had, but like, I would say there's a few more on that list. But yeah.
And again, two that come to mind that we've just had to part ways, and again, that came back to just our DNA just not matching up. And
that's good. It speaks to your ability to recognize the value of that. I think that's really key. Like, people are paying us to bring about a product, but it's not just the thing that we're making. it's like, what is that process? What is that process? Is it something that is going to build stress in my life, or like constantly looking for, oh, do I agree or do I believe in the way that they're going about the process? I can't necessarily put my finger on the beliefs different that we might have philosophically, or values or faith or anything like that. But I just see it in practice that we don't work well together because of X, Y, and Z. And I don't like the way that you're doing it. And you probably don't like the way I'm doing it. So let's part ways, right? That's super difficult in the beginning when you're trying to take any job that you...
Absolutely.
Because you have to. We're wrapping up. I want to know what the future holds for you guys. Like, what is it? What do you want to see? What do you dream about? Here's a way to put it. What thing would you do, but it's really difficult, but it wants to weasel its way into your vision. You're just not sure if finances will allow it, or if partnerships will allow it, or it's like, okay, we're getting older, we have families, do we really want to take that amount of risk? What are some of those things?
Yeah, anything that comes to mind for you? I mean...
Yeah, we try to revisit this. I think early stages, it was definitely like more like, well, it's got to be growth. It's got to make a bigger company, make more money, do what we're doing now, just amp it up 10x. I think for us, we do try to revisit that like once a year. I will say, and this probably won't answer your question perfectly, but bringing our kids specifically on the journey, like we think and talk about that. We want to be able to give them a foot in the door, and certainly by no means like force them to, be a part of the company and take over the company. But that's something that we really look forward to, is facilitating, an inroad and something that we can bring them along on the journey. And they're not that far out, and in 5 years they'll be working age, from that standpoint. Our kids already ask us stuff, come out on set and so forth when applicable. And so our motto is enjoy the adventure, and that's what we want to continue to be doing. There's been times along the way where we haven't been doing that, and we sort of, snap the rubber band on our wrist and say, hey, whoa, let's stop a second. We're not enjoying this. Like, what do we need to change to make that happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think definitely still within this space, and I think just expanding the relationships and the networks that we have to increase the level of enjoyment that everyone has in the process, and obviously, increasing the quality of the product, and making sure we're that much closer to the target for both ourselves and the client. So that's what I would say from my end.
Yeah, and I would say from day one, that was kind of how the company was built. Like I didn't go and get another 9 to 5 and just take another step over, because I wanted to have that freedom. I wanted to be able to have freedom with my time, and so that's why me and Derrick match up very well, is because that was what was most important to us. We weren't looking to like take over the world. We were looking to take back our time and be able to kind of facilitate how we wanted to spend that time. And so family's massive for us, and our kids, our wives, like that's just a massive, massive thing. And so we want to be able to enjoy the process. My goal has always been to like, you have work and then you have your free time or play time. And I always wanted that to kind of mesh and never feel like, oh, I'm going off to work, I got to go punch the clock and got to punch in, I always wanted that to feel like, it's all, this is life. And we're just enjoying that adventure again. Now, to answer your question, what out there do you want to do? I've always said from day one, I want to, some of our work that we're currently doing, and we had that opportunity the year before last to do a big project with a nonprofit, but close to my heart is like, I want to do work that matters. And I want to, we do all kinds of work selling products, different service lines, etc. But for me, working with nonprofits where we're able to use our talents to better other people's lives or bring awareness to a situation that could help, people that are less fortunate. That's definitely near and dear to my heart for sure. It's something that I preach to my kids all the time, how to be generous and, how to think a little bit differently on stuff. And then, I think we are not unaware of the changes that are happening in our industry, AI and whatever. And so we are certainly open books, knowing that things are going to be shaken up here in the future. And so what does that look like? We don't know, but we are certainly wide open to knowing like there may be some changes here and there. There may be some opportunities. And so we're certainly open to all of those things moving forward. And we'll kind of see as they kind of develop. You know, we don't want to be behind the curve on stuff and kind of hanging on to, you know, our film reels and saying digital is never going to be a thing. Like there's never going to be digital cameras that could take the place. Like we don't want to be those guys, but you know, I think we're just open to those things in the future. So
yeah, well said. Yeah, I think about the changes that are coming quite often. There's a conversation we have internally a lot, and you know, it's pretty wild to think that you can just speak a few words and then suddenly these images are being generated and maybe generated in sequence, right? Like animations or video. It changes happening and coming very quickly. But you know, I don't think the idea of telling authentic stories that are true and real and other people's, you know, what they're presenting, I think that will always be a thing. We should collaborate on something sometime. Yeah. You know,
Absolutely.
maybe it'd be really sick if we did like a series together with like nonprofit or a group of nonprofits. We're doing more work with nonprofits as long as they are of a certain size and we can provide value to them and they can provide the value that we need, right? The level of compensation. That'd be pretty fun. And I just wanted to speak to something you guys mentioned, both of you, which is families. I'm a little bit older than you, and my oldest son works here with me, and it's pretty awesome to work with him. His name is Jai. Shout out to Jai, who's probably back there hearing me say
Shout out to Jai.
Yeah, Jai is awesome. He, you know, we went through a whole series of job like roles. He's gone through different, you know, seasons where he's tried different things. He's been a shooter. He's been an editor. Though he did well at those things, but they didn't take the way that I thought that maybe they would in terms of like long-term moving the needle. But oddly, he landed in finance, and it's such a blessing for me because like I love a working business and I see the value of following the metrics and being very careful with data, but I don't naturally love it.
Yeah.
And so for him to be like, you know, doing our books, doing our accounting, doing our cash flow analysis, it's just like such a blessing.
That's so cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's got to be really rewarding too for you,
Yeah,
just to
it
see
is.
that
Yeah.
his story and how that all comes, and even like you said, like how you think it might turn out, but how it actually turns out, and that's so cool.
Yeah, so I say that to encourage people that you have to kind of try things, and we get asked a lot about, you know, young people about career paths. Should I go to college? Should I do film school? I'm sure you guys are asked these questions too. And my big thing is just like you got to try a lot of stuff. You got to try it when you're young and you have no risk, like no you know, big you know, responsibilities yet. Just take those risks and go quick and try a lot of stuff and see what you're good at. You'll gain skill, and that's what we did with him. So I think you guys. So I encourage you guys to do that with your kids too. I think it's going to be pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
But yeah, and I also have done that with two of my other sons, and you know they're off doing other things. So everybody, and it's great. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, I guess we'll end on that note. It's been great conversation and just kind of digging into the similarities between our businesses, and I do think it'd be pretty dope if we collaborated on something. So
absolutely. We are gonna be up there in likely end of the summer, right near you. We're gonna be in what is it, Portsmouth, New Hampshire? That's not too far from you guys, right?
Oh, it's right here. It's real close.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll be.
That's a beautiful city.
We were there last year for a client. We're going up this year again. So we'll definitely have to, at the very least, link up summertime and make something happen.
Yeah.
What is it? A brewery?
It's not a brewery. No, it's a company in the tactical industry. So
nice. Yeah. We could probably share. We could probably swap clients' names offline here too,
Yeah.
because we might have people that would really want to work with you guys more so than what we're doing. So we'll see. We'll talk through
cool.
it.
For sure.
Yeah, we would love to collaborate, especially really on anything, but in the nonprofit world for sure. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, well, it's been great. Thanks, fellas.
Cool.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks
have
so
a
much,
good one.
Jed.
Thanks again for having us on.